Love came softly, like the spring season, even for Jesus. No one could have predicted that the whisper of raindrops during the night would turn into an inevitable fate. Who would have imagined that a leaky faucet would bring together two lonely hearts? No one, certainly. Do you know anyone in the neighborhood who fixes faucets? I asked that day, unaware that this simple question would completely change the lives of two people. Today, I want to share a very special story, the touching love story between Grandma Rose and Mr. Paul, and the beautiful secret of their first night together. Life truly surprises us. A love that begins with a repair seems unbelievable, even to me. However, that night marked the start of a new chapter in my life. It had been 10 years since I separated from my husband, and I was living alone. Over time, I built higher and higher walls within myself. When someone tried to get close, distrust was my first response, thinking that, sooner or later, they would leave me too. Every morning, I looked in the mirror and told myself, it's okay, loneliness is fine. But deep down, it was just a shelter I had created to protect myself. My days passed in solitude, tending to the plants on my balcony and eating dinner alone in an empty room. At first, it was extremely difficult. After 3 decades of marriage, my husband decided to leave with another woman, claiming he wanted to recapture his youth dancing by her side. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Over time, I managed to adapt to living alone. I lived simply on a monthly pension of $1,000,001 and thought that was peace enough. But I was wrong, or at least, I was until the faucet started dripping. The incessant dripping at night kept me awake. One day, while watering my plants in the morning, that sound made me feel lonelier than ever. I lived that way for 10 years, but in the end, I couldn't take it anymore and called the community center. Do you know anyone in the neighborhood who fixes faucets? I asked. Little did I know that call would be a turning point in my life. That afternoon, I met Mr. Paul. He wore a blue jumpsuit and stood at my door. I'm here because I heard the faucet is broken, he said simply but kindly. His hair was neatly combed, his attire impeccable, and his tone of voice exuded confidence. I watched him as he repaired the faucet, admiring his dedication and precision. It should be working properly now. The issue was a worn washer, he explained. And he was right, the dripping stopped, and the faucet gleamed like new. I tried to pay him for the repair, but Mr. Paul refused. He said something I'll never forget, everything in life can be fixed, even broken hearts. It just takes time. Later, I learned that in his youth, he had suffered a severe accident while working in a factory. Despite that, he never gave up and used his rehabilitation process to learn new skills. That afternoon, my heart began to beat in a way I hadn't experienced in 10 years. I decided to invite him for coffee as a gesture of gratitude. We sat in the living room and started talking. I discovered he also lived alone, having lost his wife 5 years earlier. Despite his solitude, he often helped neighbors with small repairs. From that moment on, our lives began to intertwine. Each week, Mr. Paul would visit me to ensure everything was fine. Over time, these visits became an opportunity to share a cup of coffee. His kindness and the gesture of bringing my favorite brand of coffee warmed my heart. I found myself in front of the mirror, choosing clothes and smiling like a 20-year-old. For the first time in a long time, I was getting ready for someone else. Our connection developed naturally, like the fresh lettuce leaves he once brought from his small garden. They were washed and neatly arranged, reflecting his meticulous and generous nature. That night, I invited him to dinner, something I hadn't done in years. It was the beginning of something special. Looking back, I think that broken faucet was a blessing in disguise, a touch of fate that brought us together. The day he mentioned it, I felt a flutter in my chest. The soybean paste stew tasted blander than usual, perhaps due to the salt, but Mr. Paul praised it, saying it was delicious, and helped himself to 2 bowls. After the meal, the conversation flowed effortlessly. At first, we talked about trivial topics, but at some point, we began sharing memories from the past. When he mentioned his late wife, Mr. Paul smiled softly, his eyes glistening. He told me his wife of 30 years had passed away unexpectedly due to a stroke. I remember, as I saw his eyes well up, I instinctively reached out and gently held his hand. Can I share my story too? That's how mine began, like opening a window that had been closed for a long time. For 3 decades, I placed my trust in my husband, but one day I discovered he had started seeing a younger woman under the pretense of taking ballroom dance lessons. I decided to end it all. Finally, I was able to share my deepest feelings with someone. Mr. Paul listened silently, occasionally nodding, which was more comforting than any words could have been. About 6 months later, just like any other day, we were having dinner together when Mr. Smith took on a more serious expression than usual. "Miss Rosa, we've reached an advanced age, and..." At that moment, I felt breathless, my heart racing as it hadn't since I was 20. "What would you think about living with me?" he said. As soon as I heard those words, a wave of emotions surged in my chest, happiness, excitement, but also fear. I still didn't feel ready. Before I could say anything, Mr. Smith gently interrupted, "Miss Rosa, there are no guarantees in life, right? Why don't we live together and support one another? I'll always be by your side and take care of you." His words brought tears to my eyes, not just for the desire to ease the loneliness but because I truly felt I wanted to be his life partner. "I want to be with you too," I replied, my voice breaking, and I saw his eyes well up with emotion. That night, we decided to hold a simple wedding ceremony, without great fanfare, as we were embarking on a new chapter of life at our age. However, Mr. Smith had an unexpected surprise planned. A few days later, he called me to say he wanted to discuss something. "About our marriage," he began. His proposal took me by surprise. "Miss Rosa, what do you think about organizing a formal ceremony, inviting everyone, friends and family?" At first, I didn't know what to think. Was something that big really necessary for a marriage at our age? Before I could respond, he looked at me seriously and added, "You're my wife, and I want everyone to see how much I love you. I want everyone to know that I will protect you forever." His words touched my heart deeply. As I reflected on everything during a moment of solitude, I realized how small and lost I had felt. Yet, it was at that very moment that, unexpectedly, Mrs. Park CNA, a friend of Jang Gio's family, approached me at the market. "Hello, Miss Rosa. I heard you're marrying Mr. Gio. He's always been so kind, even helping me a lot," she said. Hearing her, something stirred inside me. I felt there was something behind her words, something I couldn't quite grasp. Suddenly, she asked, "Has Mr. Gio ever told you that he used to visit our home frequently?" I was taken aback. He had never mentioned anything like that, and I began to wonder if I was being deceived again. The walk back home felt endless, with those questions circling in my mind. The wedding was still moving forward, but my heart was full of uncertainties. Before continuing, remember to like the video if you're enjoying it and subscribe to the channel for the best tips on attracting abundance and prosperity into your life. Let's move on. That very night, I saw something that completely shook me. Mr. Smith was on the street late at night, accompanied by a woman I didn't recognize. At first, it was hard to believe, but I couldn't deny it was him. Normally, I would have let the scene pass, but Mrs. Park CNA's words kept echoing in my mind. And the most painful part was that the woman wasn't someone I knew. Later, I found out she was Jang Gio's daughter. They had met secretly to discuss their wedding, but I didn't know that at the time, and it deeply affected me. After my encounter with Mrs. Park, I felt as if everything around me was falling apart. As I walked home, my steps felt heavier, as if the air had grown thicker. Mrs. Park's words kept ringing in my ears, "He's always been this way, always so concerned for others." I stopped at a bench in the park, overwhelmed by an unsettling sense that something was wrong, while the soft spring breeze brushed my face and my body trembled with cold. It was then that I remembered the day, 3 decades ago, when I first heard about my ex-husband's social dances. I thought to myself, is this how I really feel in this moment? Am I about to make another wrong decision? If I make this mistake now, at my age, I won't recover. The wedding preparations were in full swing. Yesterday, even as Paul and I chose the wording for the invitations, I had felt so excited. We also discussed the flower arrangements and the guest list. But now, everything seemed to be falling apart. That night, as usual, Jang Ki-woo arrived. As always, he waited outside my door with his radiant smile. "Rosa Ae, tonight we're dining at my favorite restaurant," he said. We talked a bit more about the wedding, and although my mind was full of doubts, I held them in and simply nodded. My steps felt slow, but I followed him. As we headed to the restaurant, Paul, in high spirits, chatted about the wedding details, the seating arrangements, the event sequence, the bouquet. "What flowers would you like for your bridal bouquet?" he asked. "I think I'll choose white roses," I replied. That's when tears began streaming down my face. I couldn't hold them back any longer. "Why didn't you mention Mrs. Park CNA?" I asked him. As soon as I finished speaking, Paul stopped walking. His face turned serious instantly, and for a moment, he remained silent. Then, slowly, he pointed to a bench in the park. "Rosa Ae, would you like to sit there and talk?" he said. Under the dim light of the lamppost, Paul's expression looked somber, and my heart sank even more. What excuse would he come up with? Could he lie as skillfully as my ex-husband? I reflected on various possibilities. "Rosa Ae, there's something I need to explain to you," he finally said. Paul began to speak calmly but clearly. "A few years ago, when Mrs. Park CNA's husband had a stroke, she asked me to help her with an electrical problem. Since then, I've been lending a hand now and then with repairs at her home." He showed me a small notebook where he had recorded all the repairs he had done in the community. "This is nothing out of the ordinary, Rosa Ae. It's just simple tasks. If I had been involved with someone else, do you think I would have been so calm as to propose marriage to you?" Then, he took another envelope out of his pocket. "This is something I prepared for you, Rosa Ae." Inside the envelope was a detailed record of all our moments together, like a notebook where he described how he felt the food I cooked for him was delicious, and what he thought when he saw me smile. It's a bit embarrassing, but these are my true feelings. At that moment, tears began to fall uncontrollably. I felt ashamed for doubting him, for distrusting so easily despite his care and sincerity. "I'm sorry, Paul," I managed to say between sobs. He smiled at me kindly. "You have nothing to apologize for, Rosa Ae. I should have talked to you about Park CNA earlier. It was my mistake to keep it a secret. Then, he pulled out a small ring box from his pocket and, smiling, said, "I've been searching for this ring for a month and chose it because I felt it would suit you perfectly. It belonged to my mother." The ring glimmered softly, much like our relationship. Though time had passed, our love had only grown deeper. "Paul, I've been such a fool. How could I have doubted someone as honest as you?" I confessed. He responded calmly, "It's not your fault, Rosa A.E. Considering everything you've been through, it's understandable to have doubts. Don't worry, those insecurities won't return." That night, we talked more than ever. Paul opened his heart completely, and I shared all my worries and fears. It was a moment of profound connection. Now, we're moving forward with the wedding preparations. Should we continue? Oh, right, I've already made the reservation for the ceremony at a place I think you'll love. Jang Ji-ho's eyes sparkled with excitement. Seeing his face made the doubts lingering in my heart fade away. It felt as though I was finally ready to fully embrace this new beginning. Yes, now it truly begins. Our new life. And so, the wedding preparations resumed, this time with a more special touch, perhaps due to the deeper trust we now shared. Jang Ji-ho took care of every detail, from writing the invitations to organizing the seating arrangements for the guests. Watching him in action made me smile. What impressed me the most was the venue's decoration. "Young-hae, this is a secret, but I prepared it with great care," Jang Ji-ho told me while showing me a small potted plant, identical to the ones I used to tend to at home. "We'll place one on each table, as a symbol of our first meeting when you came to fix the faucet and so delicately cared for the plants." Hearing those words deeply moved me. The simple act of remembering even the smallest details of our daily routines and treasuring them made me realize that love, although it had come later in life, was all the more intense because of it. Finally, on the wedding day, amid the delicacies on the table, congratulations from the guests poured in. When Park Siena approached me first to offer her congratulations, I felt immense relief. "Young-hae, I sincerely congratulate you. You truly make a wonderful couple with Ji-ho. If I ever said anything that could have caused misunderstandings, I deeply apologize." Her words deeply moved me again. After bidding farewell to the guests, we arrived at our new home. The intrigue about the special gift Jang Ji-ho had prepared grew with each step. However, something unexpected happened. "Young-hae, forgive me, I think I overdid it with the drinks," Jang Ji-ho said, blushing as he collapsed onto the sofa. It seemed he had consumed more alcohol than usual while toasting with the guests. At first, I felt a bit disappointed since it was our first night, but soon I couldn't help but laugh. Despite being so meticulous and reserved, seeing him apologizing so shyly for drinking too much was incredibly endearing. "It's okay, I'll get you something for the hangover," I replied as I headed to the kitchen. At that moment, Jang Ji-ho gently took my hand. "Wait, the gift," he said. He pulled out a small jewelry box from his pocket. Inside was a necklace. I saved it while working as an electrical technician. "I prepared it especially for you, Young-hae. I promise to take care of you for the rest of my life." As he placed the necklace around my neck, my heart filled with emotion. Suddenly, he got up and staggered toward the bathroom. Shortly after, he returned with a bowl of warm water and said, "I want to wash your feet, Young-hae. This is my way of showing my sincerity." Witnessing his actions, any trace of resentment I might have harbored melted away, as if it had evaporated. In truth, this was how our first night together was meant to be, not extravagant or overly romantic, but brimming with authenticity. The following morning, I woke up to the soft rays of sunlight streaming through the curtains. Turning my head, I noticed that Jang Ji-ho was already up. From the kitchen, I could hear the sounds of something being prepared. "Oh. You're already awake," I said as I walked toward him. Jang Ji-ho was cooking meat. Despite having drunk excessively the night before, his meticulous and precise way of cooking made me smile. "Young-hae, you're awake. Nothing cures a hangover like a good broth," he told me. Watching his dedication, I smiled. Last night, I had wanted to wash my feet, and now he was preparing a meal with such care. "Jang Ji-ho, it really was nice yesterday," I said. Jang Ji-ho was surprised and looked up. "Yes, but I did it because I was drunk. It was our first night, and I felt nervous and embarrassed." Hearing this, any doubt that remained in my heart completely vanished. This is the partner I've been looking for, someone who can understand and love even our imperfections. Let's continue living honestly, even as we grow old, experiencing joy, making occasional mistakes, but always growing old together. Jang Ji-ho smiled as he offered me a spoonful of soup. "Is this okay?" "Yes, it's perfect. Just like our first breakfast, this marked the beginning of our new life. Now, our days are filled with renewed happiness." The mornings have a special charm because Jang Ji-ho takes care of preparing breakfast with the vegetables he grows in his garden, while I prepare the sides using those same vegetables. Our garden, which started with a small pot, is now full of flowers and vegetables. The roses Jang Ji-ho planted are the most beautiful. At first, I thought they had wilted, but Jang Ji-ho took care of them every day, and suddenly, they began to bloom. Like our love, which started late, but bloomed in an even more wonderful way. I remember how a simple broken water valve turned out to be the start of such a meaningful relationship. At that moment, I'm glad I had the courage to contact the community center. Now, Mrs. Park Seon-ae and I have become very close neighbors. In fact, I think that misunderstanding only strengthened the trust between my husband and me. Sometimes the three of us get together, share a cup of tea, and talk about neighborhood matters. Mr. Gio continues to visit houses to fix electrical and water issues for the elderly in the community. Today, I feel proud to have such a husband. Seeing him offer help to others fills me with satisfaction. Age is just a number. If we truly understand and love each other, we can always discover a new source of happiness, just as my husband and I have. Sometimes we've been clumsy, other times inexperienced, but those experiences have shaped a warmer love. Do you also have doubts about love that comes at an advanced stage of life? Dare, as I did. Life is a journey longer than it seems, and it's never too late to find new happiness. Now, when I water the plants in the morning, I remember that broken water valve. And I think that the doubts and worries of that moment actually strengthened our mutual trust. By now understanding each other's scars and learning to love even those imperfections, the spring of our lives seems even more beautiful. This is how the touching story of Grandma's song Rosa and Mr. Maria ended. As the years go by, starting anew can be challenging, but like in their story, it seems that true love and real happiness have no age limits. Do you have any special love stories around you? Or have you experienced something similar? Share your experiences in the comments. I will be back soon with more inspiring stories. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to give a like, subscribe, and activate notifications to be the first to see new videos. Do you think living to be 100 years old story is a blessing? Also excites you? Reflect on this question as you hear the story of an elderly woman I'll tell you about. Grandma Smith, who has reached the age of 82, is going through another day filled with sighs. Since her late 60s, she has suffered from severe arthritis, which has made watching television increasingly difficult. Additionally, due to her poor hearing, she has to turn the volume up to the maximum, which has now become part of her routine. By the time she turned 80, her physical weakness became more apparent, and now she doesn't even have the strength to hold the remote control, which only adds to her distress. Finding new hobbies has also become challenging. Due to arthritis, leaving her home has become almost impossible, and although she would love to enjoy a tasty meal, there aren't many places that accept phone orders. Even when, with the help of a social worker, she tries a beef broth, her tongue has lost its agility due to age, so despite adding plenty of salt and pepper, the broth tastes completely bland, like water or salted water. Her memory is fading more and more, and she lacks the energy to move, making it difficult to find her mobile phone. Each day of her life becomes a constant battle against exhaustion and melancholy, so instead of enjoying a serene and fulfilling life in her final years, she feels that every day is a punishment. This is the sad reality of Grandma Smith, who lives in Seoul. How do you imagine your life in old age? Surely, regardless of your position or circumstances, everyone would wish to live an independent life, doing what they please until the end, in a free, healthy, and joyful way. No one, not even Grandma Smith, would want to spend their final years depending on others due to health problems that impose limitations, something that is clear. Unfortunately, the current situation is very different from what many expected. This is because not many people properly prepare to enjoy a full and healthy old age. Typically, when enjoying good health in their 50s or 60s, people tend to live without thinking too much about what lies ahead, and before they realize it, 5 or 10 years have passed. By the time they reach 80, aging appears as a surprise. From the age of 70, the physical changes related to age become more noticeable, and if no measures are taken to address them, both the body and the mind begin to deteriorate rapidly. The reduction in muscle mass, the deterioration of joints, the decline in cognitive ability, and the aging of nerve cells cause the senses to become less precise. Facing the real sensation of both physical and mental loss, old age turns into a nightmare filled with sadness and despair. This harsh reality explains why, for some people, living to be 100 is not a blessing, but a burden. Now, I want to ask you a question. Do you know what the ages of 20 for men and 23 for women represent? According to a report from the Insurance Development Institute, the average life expectancy in South Korea for the year 2024 is 86.3 years for men and 90.7 years for women. However, in addition to the general life expectancy, there is the concept of healthy life, which refers to the age when a person remains physically and mentally well and can lead an independent life. According to the most recent data from 2023, the average healthy life percentage is 65.6% for men and 67.2% for women. This means that, on average, men begin to lose their health at the age of 65, while women do so at 67. By the ages of 86 and 90, respectively, both must rely on others for care until their death. The ages of 20 for men and 23 for women that I mentioned earlier represent the period when health begins to deteriorate and death approaches. Of course, these are statistical data, so not everyone will follow this same path. In fact, there are individuals who, despite having passed through the stage of good health, continue to enjoy an active old age. These people may feel very satisfied to be in better physical condition than the average. However, in most cases, special health care is needed around the age of 60, and even more so in the 70s, due to the onset of chronic diseases. Statistics indicate that, although life expectancy continues to rise, the number of years lived in good health is decreasing. This means that, while people live longer, many face diseases and limitations that degrade their quality of life. A friend who works at a university hospital told me that, although we are entering an era where living to 100 is becoming more possible, he is unsure whether this period will be one of well-being or rather one of anguish, as those who do not take care of their health and experience accelerated aging at the end of their lives might face years of suffering. According to his observation, people in their 60s generally enjoy good health, but by the time they reach 75, they experience a significant loss of physical abilities. Although some people retire at 65, after about 10 years, they begin to feel too tired to do many activities. Most people who are over 75 abandon sports like golf due to lack of vitality. The only form of exercise older people can do is walking. As we age, health begins to decline significantly by the age of 70, and by the time we reach 80, it becomes uncertain whether we will enjoy another year of life. Therefore, reaching 100 is no easy task, and if we live much longer, our existence will be complicated. As a friend of mine mentioned, people who surpass 80 often face both physical and cognitive problems. Being aware of this reality, it may already be too late to do anything about it. Although the average life expectancy is approaching 100 years, we all aspire to live a long life, but above all, a healthy one, with a body and mind in full health, enjoying independence. For this reason, facing old age without preparation is a discouraging prospect. It is crucial to start preparing early, particularly to extend a healthy life and ensure a satisfying retirement. That's why today, I want to share 5 recommendations on how to prepare for aging, preferably in your 50s or 60s, or at least before reaching 70. If we start taking action now, we will certainly be able to enjoy a healthy and fulfilling old age. Before we continue, remember to like this video if you're enjoying it and subscribe to the channel for the best tips on how to attract abundance and prosperity into your life. Let's move on. It's common to hear that as we age, we should keep growing and challenging ourselves. However, this mindset often remains just words, as many people don't take action on it. Do you remember the last time you learned something completely new or tried something you had never done before? In our culture, education and learning are often associated with youth, and many believe that once school is over, learning should stop. This widespread thought leads people to even hesitate in starting simple activities like a hobby or exercise. This happens not only because the new may feel uncomfortable, but also due to the fear of making mistakes or failing. Because of our emotions, we avoid confronting situations that destabilize and confuse us. This happens because we try to escape uncomfortable or difficult moments. As a result, our minds focus mainly on successful and stable experiences, while drifting away from those linked to failure. This causes only the most active areas of our brain to receive stimuli, while others remain inactive, which accelerates brain aging. It's similar to how objects deteriorate when used excessively or left unused altogether. Brain specialists suggest that learning new things and engaging in unfamiliar activities helps prevent dementia in old age. By giving our brain proper stimulation through novel experiences, we strengthen our immune system, which significantly delays the onset of conditions like dementia or depression. Nevertheless, there are still those who are reluctant to step out of their comfort zones or learn something new, thinking it's too late due to their age or believing their mind is rusty. I want to share the story of an older person who deeply motivated me. This story can serve as a great source of inspiration for all of you. It's about a 98-year-old man named Lee Gun-ho, who, despite his advanced age, dedicates 5 hours daily to skiing every winter. This is impressive because at his age, many people would struggle even to walk, yet he enjoys a sport that requires balance and motor skills. What's most amazing is that he started skiing at 60. I had the opportunity to learn to ski when I was about 40, but I felt too old and worried about injuring myself, so I never tried. I thought that balance-demanding sports, like skiing, should be learned when you're young. Now, I feel a bit embarrassed for not having tried it. However, this 98-year-old man not only continues skiing, but he also plans to compete in a senior ski tournament in the US next year. Isn't that inspiring? It doesn't matter if it's not skiing, any activity that you are passionate about, whether it's a hobby, learning a language, or exercising, you should challenge yourself to try it. It doesn't matter if you don't succeed or if you give up halfway through, no one will criticize you. The key is to be willing to try without hesitation. So, I invite you to take on a challenge and try something new, no matter what stage of life you're in. Regarding money management, I'd like to talk about something crucial for our lives. Financial management should be a priority in your 70s and 80s. It's common for people to organize their lives well between their 30s and 60s, but they rarely consider what will happen after they turn 70. In the past, life expectancy was shorter, so we didn't think much about what would happen after we turned 80. However, today, life expectancy has increased, and many people continue to live with energy and well-being after 60. If we don't adequately prepare for this stage of our existence, the first things to be affected will be our health and financial situation. Health is a constant concern throughout life, but money becomes much more essential as we age. When we're young, if we lack money, we can work hard to earn it. However, when we reach old age, if we don't have resources, the consequences can be serious. Even if we want to keep working, our bodies no longer allow it, or there's simply no way to spend it. The children, whom we've dedicated so much effort to raising, are now absorbed in their own commitments. Money doesn't appear magically, unless you get lucky with the lottery, so unless something unexpected happens, it doesn't come without reason. Therefore, as we grow older, it's essential to prepare to cover our own financial needs. Don't delay until tomorrow what you can do today. From the moment you watch this video, make sure to prepare in advance. What you prepare now will generate reliable results and won't fail you when the time for retirement comes. Retirement planning is not just about saving money for daily expenses, but also about preparing in terms of health, recreational activities, and social relationships. Any retirement strategy involves uncertain and inevitable risks, but liquid savings, accumulated consistently and steadily, are what will truly support us. Therefore, as soon as you finish watching this video, create a budget for your retirement expenses based on your current lifestyle and start planning for your future. There are different perspectives on how much money is needed to maintain an adequate standard of living during retirement, with estimates ranging from 1.5 million to 3 million per month for an individual, but these figures are only a general estimate. It is most appropriate for you to determine your own expenses based on your personal situation. It is essential to create a solid financial plan, such as joining the national insurance or investing in pension products or having income-generating properties. However, there is one key thing to remember when making these arrangements: do not be tempted to seek quick profits. Retirement investments, due to their nature, offer little room to recover losses, so it is crucial to avoid risky investments in real estate, stocks, or other unproven areas that may generate losses. It is important to choose safe investment options, with no risk of capital loss, to avoid facing economic difficulties in retirement. The 5 key aspects to consider before reaching 80 are: first, recognize that you cannot stop aging, but you can take care of your health to maintain a youthful appearance and a healthy body. Health is everything, and no one can argue with this truth. Taking care of our health is a responsibility for everyone, especially when preparing for retirement. In the past, the concept of anti-aging was very popular, but today we talk more about gradual aging, that is, preventing premature aging and maintaining a more gradual aging process. Sometimes, we encounter people of the same age who seem much younger or older than they actually are. Premature aging not only affects our appearance but also accelerates the onset of chronic diseases and the loss of physical abilities as we age. While some people in their 70s or 80s maintain the physical and mental energy of younger individuals, others, even in their 50s and 60s, end up in nursing homes due to premature aging. Therefore, preventing aging is essential and should start early. Western eating habits, physical inactivity, stress, lack of rest, and obesity are the main reasons behind accelerated aging. I solved it. I used to walk moderate distances to ensure that I naturally met the minimum daily exercise requirement, and when night fell, I would retire early to rest and be ready for the next day. This lifestyle was something inevitable and typical of that era. Today, however, it has become a conscious and essential practice for our health. Therefore, if you want to establish healthy habits that promote slower aging, do not overly rely on the pleasures and comforts of modern life. As we age, it can become somewhat uncomfortable, but it is essential to maintain a healthy diet and do exercises that benefit our physical well-being, even if that means making an extra effort. It is important to pay more attention to our daily habits. Additionally, to protect our mental health in old age, we must also protect the brain's cognitive function. Therefore, I suggest you follow the advice I gave earlier, learn new things or engage in unfamiliar activities to activate your mind. This kind of stimulation can help slow brain aging and prevent disorders such as Alzheimer's. Before reaching old age, there are 5 aspects that are important to understand and plan for. The fourth one is carefully choosing where you will live in your later years, based on what you love. Many people dream of moving to the countryside and they get older, and you might be one of them. Those who grew up in the countryside and later moved to the city for work often fantasize about returning to rural life once they reach maturity. In fact, many people, after participating in TV programs or becoming well-known figures in their community, have managed to fulfill their dream of moving to the countryside. However, while some adjust perfectly, others, due to lifestyle differences, end up returning to the city. In these cases, they discover that life in a rural area doesn't suit their personality. On the other hand, some elderly people think that living in a big city, close to hospitals and medical services, is a more convenient option. This is also influenced by individual preferences, so what works for some may not work for others. If you want to have a fulfilling old age, it's essential to first determine what type of living environment you would prefer. I know a 60-year-old woman who recently seemed worried when I saw her. When I listened to her, she told me that her parents, both nearing 90 years old, used to live in a house in the countryside. However, after speaking with her siblings, they decided to move them to an apartment near a hospital so that her father, who suffered from a chronic illness, could receive medical attention more easily. A couple of weeks later, when she visited her parents in the new apartment, she noticed that her father's health was deteriorating rapidly, even though his condition had not changed. Her mother, although unsure, suggested that her father's lack of outdoor activity could be affecting his well-being. While they lived in the countryside, he used to do daily tasks like taking care of the garden, which kept him active without needing extra exercise. However, after moving to the apartment, he started avoiding going outside due to the lack of activities and the constant noise from cars. After several weeks indoors, he, who used to be a calm person, became even more withdrawn and started showing signs of depression. The daughter, feeling guilty, is now looking for a new home in the countryside, convinced that rural life would be better for her parents' health. This story shows that the decision of where to live in old age directly impacts our physical and mental health, especially regarding emotional well-being. If you decide to move after retiring or when your children are already independent, it is crucial to choose your home based on criteria different from those you used when working. Instead of being guided by rumors or what others think, it's essential to understand your personality and preferences deeply. Are you more drawn to cities or the countryside? Do you feel more comfortable in an apartment, or do you prefer a house with a garden? Do you enjoy being part of a community, or do you prefer having your own space? The more you think about these aspects, the clearer you'll be about what you truly seek. Don't feel overwhelmed by these thoughts. Take the time to explore your preferences deeply to choose the type of home that best suits you in your later years. This kind of reflection will be key to a fulfilling and successful life in the years to come, and an excellent preparation for your future. The fifth and final suggestion is to change your perspective on aging and see it as a time when you are still young. Have you ever felt melancholic when looking at wrinkles or gray hair in the mirror? In those moments, the passage of time becomes more noticeable, and it can cause sadness. It's common to have pessimistic thoughts about aging, but recent research has revealed that adopting a negative attitude toward aging can adversely affect our physical health. A study conducted by Oregon State University found that people who focus continuously on their aging or consider themselves old tend to suffer greater physical decline. This type of negative thinking can lead to a more passive and dependent attitude, which also negatively impacts health. Many older people express statements like, "I've lived enough," or, "When I get old, I'd prefer to die," but even though these phrases may be said in jest, they can have a harmful effect on both the speaker and the listener. Psychologist Cho Seo-won from Gyeonggi University suggests that we focus on the accomplishments that come with the passage of time, rather than on what we no longer have. Aging doesn't just involve physical changes, it also brings many benefits, such as greater experience and less worry. What's essential is to view old age as a natural stage of life, embrace this process with serenity, and try to maintain a positive attitude. Only in this way can we age healthily and fully enjoy our relationships, values, and experiences in adulthood. Reflect on this, and if you understand its importance, focus on replicating that value. Accept the passage of time, and at the same time, become aware that you are now younger than ever while putting your core principles into practice. Your future will be even brighter than the youthful days filled with light that you've already experienced. Today, I want to share 5 aspects that you should know and prepare in advance for the future. The first is not to doubt or delay personal learning and self-improvement. The second is to ensure that you manage your retirement fund properly, establishing a stable source of income. The third is that, although aging cannot be stopped, we should strive to delay it as much as possible and maintain lasting physical youth. The fourth recommendation is to carefully select the place where you will live during retirement, based on your personal preferences. The fifth, is to adopt a new perspective on aging and consider yourself still young. We are approaching an era in which living to 100 will be common, and this future is not so distant. In 2024, the Korea Insurance Development Institute reported that, for the first time, the average life expectancy in the country exceeded 90 years. Life expectancy continues to increase each year, which will soon bring us an average life expectancy close to 100 years. I ask you the question again, do you really believe that the 100-year life is a blessing? Those who enjoy their life right now may consider that reaching 100 will be equally pleasant and full of happiness. However, those facing physical, mental, or financial difficulties might see a prolonged life to that age as unbearable. Of everything I've shared with you today, topics like health, money, housing, and learning are essential, but the most crucial factor is the attitude we have toward aging. If, starting at 50 or 60 years old, we adopt the idea that it's too late or that we are too old to do something, we won't try anything, and the process of aging, both physically and mentally, will accelerate even more quickly. After all, today is the youngest day you will have in your entire life. Unless we can travel back in time, this is the youngest moment we will experience, so it is crucial to change our mindset. With the belief that today is the best and youngest time to start something, go for it without hesitation and do everything you've always wanted to do. If you are able to fill the time you have left with this attitude, reaching 100 years will become one of the greatest blessings and accomplishments of your bright, full life. This concludes today's video. If you enjoyed what you saw, don't forget to subscribe and like. We appreciate you being with us for so long. We'll see you soon with even more valuable content. I support all our wise followers in living a happy and radiant life. Thank you.